Netherlands win Euro stunner. Mbappe hints at Giroud tension. England begin with sterling performance. Leicester chase Coutinho deal and a transfer roundup all coming up in the next few minutes. As I'm your host Matt Froelich, you are the One Footballers, and this is the Daily News. First off, and the Netherlands secured an absolutely stunning victory last night against Ukraine, but I will throw in a quick shout before we start anything for Andrei Yarmolenko's goal. What a banger. Anyway, back to the Netherlands, and they won 3-2 thanks to a late header from Denzel Dumfries, but they almost threw it away. After being 2-0 up thanks to Wijnaldum and Weghorst, they were pegged back to 2-2 by Andrei Shevchenko's side. Crazy to think that he's now the manager of Ukraine rather than on the pitch, and eventually managed to get a win. But it was a very, very tough game at the end of a tough weekend. Of course, we spoke about Christian Eriksen yesterday, and it was revealed that he did have a cardiac arrest. He suffered cardiac arrest, and former teammate Daley Blind found it very difficult to mentally get prepared for the game. He did so, put in a good shift of just over an hour before being replaced by Nathan Ake, and I'm sure the victory over the Ukraine will act as some sort of comfort in what has been a very, very tragic weekend. Loads of messages have been flooding in for Christian Eriksen, and we're all hoping that he gets well soon. As for the match last night, well, like I mentioned, it was great to have fans back in the stadium, and it was such a ridiculously good game. We hope the rest of the tournament continues in this style. In the other game in the group, Austria were 3-1 winners over North Macedonia. And don't forget, you can find plenty more Euro 2020 content on the OneFootball app and the VW OneHub, so why don't you check them out? And if you're watching on YouTube, click the links in the description. Next up, I'm moving on to France, who always seem to be one little bit of tension away from completely collapsing. I mean, in 2018, they managed to keep those things at bay and they won the World Cup. So they'll be hoping for a repeat performance, but already there seems to be a bit of tension between Kylian Mbappe and Olivier Giroud. Giroud came out in a press conference and said he wasn't exactly happy with the link-up play between him and Kylian Mbappe. Maybe both of them were a little bit panicked when Karim Benzema was recalled to the squad, but now the fact that he is injured, it's clear that, well, Mbappe and Giroud should get back to what they were doing in 2018, because that clearly worked. Kylian Mbappe said that he was very disappointed, not only in what Giroud said, but more so that he decided to go to the media about it. When they were walking around in the change room, he said absolutely nothing. Didier Deschamps will be hoping that this does not affect their preparation for the game against Germany on Tuesday night. But if it does, and he decides, you know what, I've had enough of you two being children, I'm going to kick you both out of the starting 11, France are still going to have a ridiculous team. Like, there's Griezmann in there, of course. You could have Ousmane Dembele. You could have Kingsley Coman. You could have so many other players, but still, I think they'd probably miss Kylian Mbappe. But next up then, and to England, who put in a rather sterling performance, if you'll pardon the pun, as Raheem Sterling managed to grab the winner in the game against Croatia. 1-0 victory for England and a little bit of revenge for that semi-final defeat in the World Cup. And Gareth Southgate had some massive, massive calls to make. And because they won, it looks like he got them right, but there were some very, very tough decisions. So first off, because you have to name two goalkeepers as a backup, it means that, well, you don't get to name as many players on the bench. Ben Chilwell and Jadon Sancho both missed out on the squad entirely. This is Champions League winning left-back Ben Chilwell, and instead a right-back in Kieran Trippier was chosen ahead of him. Trippier actually had a good game, but can you imagine if he didn't? Wouldn't exactly go down too well. As for the right-back spot, Kyle Walker won it and really didn't put in a very good performance. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Reece James in the next match because of how well he's played and how poor Kyle Walker was. But going forward, it's the same sort of thing. Jack Grealish was left on the bench for Raheem Sterling. That one paid off, and with him, Mount and Foden behind Harry Kane, a largely ineffectual Harry Kane for the minutes that he played before he came off, it would have been very, very difficult to back Southgate if all of that had happened. They needed some pace and some trickery in the last few minutes of the game, and Jadon Sancho wasn't even sitting on the bench. But of course, England won 1-0, everything's rosy, so no one's really coming after the manager just yet. What it means for the rest of the tournament is actually, I think, quite a good sign that no one is safe, no one is guaranteed a spot in the starting 11, and England have plenty of options. So many, in fact, that some quality players aren't even on the bench. But away from the Euros for just a second, and to some transfer news, as Leicester are chasing Philippe Coutinho. Not only is it weird to hear those two mentioned in the same sentence, because, well, think of Coutinho and the clubs that he's played for, and think of Leicester's recent rise and, well, losing out on Champions League spaces in the last few seasons. But if they manage to get this one over the line, they are getting an insane player. From Leicester's point of view, they've got the likes of Jose Perez, there's James Maddison in there as well. They're very good players who have done very well for Leicester. But in all honesty, Coutinho, a fit and firing on form Coutinho, is a level above those guys, and on top of this, he could probably teach them a thing or two as well. From Barcelona's side, yes, they paid a ridiculous amount of money to Liverpool for him. They got a bit of money in a loan fee from Bayern Munich, but now if they manage to sell him, the report says for as little as 17 million, they get a little bit of money back, they get him off the wage bill, they get him out of the squad and free up another squad number, maybe for another young player that Ronald Koeman wants to bring in, or maybe another free transfer with the likes of Memphis Depay. So it kind of makes sense for Barcelona to get rid of him, but from Leicester's point of view, yeah, 17 million for Coutinho is an absolute steal. So Brendan Rodgers to reunite with Philippe Coutinho after he brought him to England in the first place all those years ago. Lastly then, we come to a quick roundup of the rest of the day's transfer news that you might have missed. And Leeds United are interested in Lyon's Maxwell Cornet, although the French club want around 20 million for the Ivorian. Next up, and Mikel Arteta is open to selling Arsenal #1 Bernd Leno if they can get a replacement in, with talks about Andre Onana potentially joining the club. Elsewhere, Liverpool have joined Manchester United in showing interest in Juventus's on loan Atalanta defender Christian Romero, who had a fantastic season in Serie A. And lastly but not least, when Jude Bellingham turns 18 at the end of the month, Dortmund will trigger an extension in his contract, which will see him staying at the club until 2025, barring a ridiculous bid from another club. That's all for me for today. Make sure you check out everything else we've got going on here on screen. And until next time, enjoy the football, and I will see you guys later.